guys, what's going on? This is the TheAireaidLord back after a few days, a week since my last video where I was explaining some of the audio problems that I had with the reaction, which caused the second half to kind of just fade into oblivion, and it's only in visual version. But I'm back with my official Season 8 review, start to finish, episodes 1 to 16, episode 1 curiously named Mercy, episode 16 named Wrath, which is that line that Sadiq says, my mercy prevails over my wrath, which is the major thing that Rick embarks and embraces at the end of this season. And this is just my overall review of the season as a whole. I did this after the finale of Season 7, and I'm doing it for Season 8. So, just going through kind of the roller coaster of this season, because my gosh, I mean, this was all-out war. I mean, not only that, there was so much kind of riding on this season. You had a lot of people who were starting to jump off the Walking Dead train after Season 7, and this was really a time to try to get that audience back. You had incredible ratings for the Season 7 premiere with the victims of who Negan killed. You had like 17 million viewers, and then it really started diving off of the cliff after that. I'm not sure if it was because of those two deaths in particular, but there were some issues that had to be hashed out. So, Season 8 premiere was not only the start of All Out War, but it was also the 100th episode of The Walking Dead. There were a lot of there was a lot building up. I mean, people wanted vengeance and justice to what had happened to the characters, and you know, I agree. I agree with that assessment, and it took for me, the first half of this season was super action packed, and the second half had it had its different feel. And Scott Gimple has said that every 8 episodes tries to accomplish something different with the show. And he had said before this season began that the first 4 episodes were going to be action, you know, you're going to be knocked off your seat type of action. This is just a roller coaster of insanity. This is just something you're going to want to strap in for. And Season 1, we got a lot of... I remember I was watching it with my dad. After I did the reaction a few days ago, I watched the episode with my dad. And he didn't understand why there was so much jumping around. Because if you remember that first episode, there's 3 different timelines they're jumping between. They're jumping between the present, where they're building the metal shields to put on the cars, preparing for the war. There's the future, after Rick defeats Negan and he's sitting underneath the tree with the 2 window panels. And then there's this other alternate dimension, which we don't know what this is at this point. We assume that it's Rick dreaming about, you know, this is like a flash forward to after the war and what happens. But in reality, it was actually Carl's vision of what he wanted the future to be. And nobody really, I think nobody predicted that, because I don't think anyone predicted. Now, this is a big spoiler, obviously spoilers if you're watching this review. I talk about all things Season 8 in this video, but I don't think anyone expected Carl to die. I didn't. He is a critical part of where The Walking Dead is headed. In the new future, the new villainous group that gets introduced, it's Carl's relationship with one of the members of this group that kind of spurs on how it unfolds. So I don't know. I've said this before. I mean, either Judith or Henry are going to be their 2 options for doing that, if they're going to, you know, use kids to kind of embrace that storyline. But I mean, not to get off track. Nobody really predicted that would happen with Carl. Nobody at all. And I think for these episodes, most people were just expecting them to follow the comic materials for the most part, which was the war. The walkers trap Negan in. And so basically it takes Negan out of play for a couple of episodes. So then you have them bouncing around to all the different outposts with characters who don't have names. Like the woman, like I remember in episode 2, the woman that has the shootout with the Alexandrians, who keeps telling that guy to shut up. We don't know what her name is, and then she ends up getting bitten by a walker and dies at the end of the episode. She's like a 1-episode kind of lieutenant kind of character. Same thing with freaking Morales, of all things. We got that a character from season 1 somehow was found by the Saviors and was brought all the way up to Virginia and is now a Savior. And there were a lot of rumors about this, and they somehow ended up being true. But in the grand scheme, like, I forgot all about Morales. Like, Carl's death overshadowed Morales completely, and I think those were the two big shockers, like returning Morales to the picture and Carl dying. And Morales came back in episode 2, and then he had an extended conversation in episode 3, and then Daryl kills him in the beginning of episode 3, and it's like, why did we wait 8 seasons to see a character that was just going to be killed off? Like, was there no redemption for him? Could he, why wasn't he given the chance that Negan was? Was he just an example of the things that Rick and Daryl shouldn't be doing? Like, I like how Rick even looks down. He's like, don't you realize who that is? And Daryl's like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care who it is. Like, I mean, again, that's another thing I'll talk about in this video. Daryl's perspective in the whole season. But I just think, like, the Carl death, like, it was so shocking because it wasn't a moment that was built up to. Like, when any other character is killed, there's a build up to it, unless it's a fake out death with Glenn under the dumpster. But there's usually some sort of scene structured around it, and it was kind of a fake out with Carl because there was no indication that Carl was bit. In episode 6, when it happened, season 8, episode 6, when he's helping Siddiq kill those walkers, there's no indication that he was bit by a walker. And you see him kind of nervous and kind of like, holy shit, I was just in an altercation, but it looks like he escaped it unscathed. And in an interview, Scott Gimple said, I was surprised that people didn't notice that Carl was bit in that episode, in episode 6. And the crazy thing is, episode 6 doesn't even have to do anything with Carl. It's more, the name of the episode is The Widow, the King, and Rick, which are the 3 leaders of the major communities fighting Negan, and it dealt with them. Episode 6 jumped around to a lot of different perspectives, and Carl was kind of just thrown in the episode trying to help Siddiq, and he wasn't really in the season. Like, he was in the first episode where he finds Siddiq. He talks with Rick, like, were you going to shoot him? You see Carl kind of angry that Rick was just going to kill some random straggler. Carl gets left at Alexandria. Rick says goodbye to him, and that's it. Like, Carl really doesn't have any moments in this season other than helping the Alexandrians escape Negan's bombardment when he's throwing the grenades with the grenade launchers. But even then, that's only because he knows he's going to die. That's kind of his last heroic hurrah. Like, he knows he's going to die anyway, so he might as well try to do something and help people. And this whole... And I can kind of see the criticism of what people were saying, this whole Messiah kind of complex with Carl, that his wishes were the reason that Rick spared Negan. Like, I understand why Scott Gimple did it, because in the comic books, Rick sparing Negan's life comes out of nowhere. Rick slices his throat with the knife, just like the show. But in the comic, Negan actually tackles Rick and breaks his leg, then passes out from the blood loss. In the show, he just cuts his throat. Negan kind of like says, why did you go back on your word, then falls over and starts to die from blood loss until Siddiq comes over and saves him on Rick's orders. Now, I'm trying to think, like, where did this God complex of Carl wanting to fight for a better future come in? Because I'm trying to trace it back to some moment in particular with Carl's character. And I have to go back all the way to season 6. Like, I'm thinking... Remember the season 6 finale where Carl... just before they're about to be captured, when Abraham's still alive, they're carrying Maggie on the stretcher, and Carl says to Rick, he's like, oh, I don't want... What happened to Denise, I don't want anyone to die like that ever again. He tells Enid that. He's like, I don't want you to be safe. He's like, the Saviors are out there. He seems to have a gun-ho mentality against the Saviors. Even Negan says, he's like, don't piss off the future serial killer. And that is carried over to when Carl stows away on the truck and shoots some of Negan's men, and then he gets the full tour. And that's, again, very much in line with the comics, but assuming that Carl's character was going to have some purpose later, and he doesn't. So what scenes were there where Carl was real like I can't think of any because even in the season 7 finale, Carl was just he pulled the guns first. Like when it was revealed that Sasha was a walker and he tackled Negan, he started shooting the junk people first, and then this is also a confusing thing. Now that we know that Negan had some feelings for Carl and felt very almost like paternally towards him, like he said, he's like, if I had a kid, I'd want him to be just like your kid. He threatens to kill Carl in that season 7 finale, and had Shiva not jumped in, he would have. He was getting you saw in that scene, he was getting ready to wind up the bat and come down, but then Shiva jumped in, and he didn't do it. But hell, I mean, Rick would have really had a reason to kill Carl, but it kind of worked out that him being bit by a walker, it wasn't the Saviors. It wasn't, and they made that very clear when Negan's on the walkie-talkie with Rick. He's like, was it us? Was it the grenades? And Rick's like, no, it wasn't you. Carl was trying to help someone, and so it pushes blame away. So Negan's a neutral party to the whole Carl death. It's just the apocalyptic nature of the world and how dangerous it is why he died. But I just, other than the scenes that he had in that premiere episode where he's trying to spare Siddiq, it's just surprising to me that all of a sudden, like, he wants this greater vision for a future. Like, I don't know where it came into play. Like, maybe this was built because he was not in season 7 that much, like, really much at all. Like, he in season 7 he freaking rollerblades with Enid, which is the most random dumb scene in the whole show. And then he stows away and goes to Negan's compound. He goes to the kingdom to meet Ezekiel, but then he's like not in the season at all. And then he comes back in episode 15 when they take the Oceanside guns, and he has a couple conversations with Enid about him thinking about the people that he's killed. So that's like the only semblance of it. Like, he's like pondering the people that he's killed, and maybe being in the sanctuary and seeing the nature of things there kind of changed his mindset. That's the only thing I can think of, really. Because other than that, it's funny because there was actually a deleted scene at the season 7 finale where Carl and Rick are talking, and Carl actually asks Rick, like, oh, would you have cut off my arm if Negan had made me? And I don't know why that scene was deleted, because it was more character development. Again, the reason I'm reminiscing so much back to season 7 and 6 with moments with Carl is because they put such prominence on his character in his death, because his death is the biggest carrying point for why Rick changes his mind. And Carl could have easily said in his letters, yeah, you should just, kill all the saviors and screw them, and they killed our friends. But no, he's like, you should try to have a few, like, I don't know where his mentality's coming from. Like, yeah, sure, it's from saving Siddiq, but what really kind of spurred that along? It's just confusing to me. Like, even him wanting to spare Siddiq. I mean, I don't know. I guess what they're trying to say is that Carl coming across an innocent man who really just needs help, like Siddiq, that kind of makes Carl more aware that people are a resource and that they should be used and not killed, and people should be given a chance. And I don't know. I mean, we do see one scene way back in season 5. I remember when Rick is in the church talking to Carl, and he's like, do you trust Father Gabriel? And Carl's like, well, not all people can be bad. And that, that kind of carries true. But I don't know, I just felt that the show then went with this direction that Carl, especially after, losing his eye, the governor, I mean, we don't see good things happen when people lose their eyes in The Walking Dead. I mean, the governor I just said was the greatest example of that. But I just thought that Carl was tilting in another direction, and it just didn't seem like he was. It seemed like he was kind of stone cold. That's why Negan calls him, look at the future serial killer here. Like, I just didn't think he was kind of moving in that direction. So I don't know. It confuses me how they did this, because Carl's attitude carries over when he doesn't die in the comics, and he has that kind of independent nature to him. And the war brings out his independence more than it does this savior god complex. And the show just, in my opinion, the show just didn't focus on it enough for it to be the fulcrum point that the season finale falls on. So, I guess that's kind of the point I'm trying to bring about. And I think in some parts, maybe that's why the season the season doesn't have the impact that maybe it should have. Because sure, you have a lot of gunfights and battles. That's what All Out War is about. You have some great character moments. I mean, Morgan's descent into madness is great. And then they use that as a way of a coping thing with him. He's like, I just got to remove myself from people. And now we get to watch Fear the Walking Dead and see how he handles that. And there are, again, many other characters. The breakdown of Ezekiel's character. Carol, did we get a lot with her? I mean, she became more of like a helping force. And just kind of... I think she's almost like where Morgan should be, where she's kind of at peace with what she has to do. Even though she knows she doesn't like killing, she's just kind of like, you know what, I have to just protect people I care about. I wasn't there, Glenn and Abraham were killed, and now I should just kind of be there for people who need me. So, Daryl, jeez, I mean, the whole freaking season, and it seems like still with this cliffhanger we got in the season 8 finale where Daryl, Rosita, and Maggie, they're all kind of upset, justifiably, I suppose. I mean, especially Maggie, that Negan was left alive, and Daryl's in on this plot to kill Negan. And even the way Daryl treats Dwight at the end of the season, where he drops the keys and tells him, like, never show your face around here again. He does tell him to go find his wife, but the way they left it off was just very sour. And for all that Dwight did, I mean, they would not have been able to succeed in this war. I mean, Dwight literally helped them win the entire fucking war. I mean, by showing them all the locations. I mean, think of all the maps, all the outposts. Like, he gave them information on everything. Seriously, like a fucking spy of the greatest degree who really helped them out this season. And where his loyalties lie and who's willing to forgive him, Tara and Daryl. And again, I mean, you had a lot of character stuff. You did. We finally started to like Jadis's character a little bit. Once her people died, I think you got to see a different side. And now she's going to be living in Rick's community, which is interesting. And there's still that helicopter question. What's that all about? So even though all the scavenger junk people are dead, there's still one left that has some more story to tell. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with her now that she's dropped the face. She's dropped the fakeade. She's Anne. She's not Jadis. Jadis was just a fake name, which is pretty funny. So yeah, again. It was a drive towards action in the first half. Then you had the shocker with Carl dying, somber couple of episodes, and that basically just unleashes Rick rage mode. Rick is very angry, and we got episode 12, which was probably one of the best of the season, where there's that battle between Rick and Negan. You have this random community just bringing plans of windmills and architecture to the hilltop. And then you have this subplot of Simon trying to undermine Negan to take control because he's been kind of pissed off with his leadership. And that is some good character development. I think the Game of Thrones-esque nature of the Sanctuary leadership. You got Negan, Simon, Dwight, and then you did have Gavin and Regina. And Eugene was kind of in there back when we thought that he was on Team Negan. The dynamic of all that was interesting, especially in episode 15, where it was like a triple cross, where Negan needed two of his enemies dealt with. He needed Simon and Dwight, who were his two top lieutenants, but now he needed them dealt with. So he basically got Dwight to get on his side so he could take down Simon. Then once Simon was taken down, he was like, well, I know what you did to me, Dwight, and then he imprisoned Dwight for the next episode. So it was a very interesting kind of twist with the leadership in the Sanctuary and how the war had taken its toll, because the Saviors were losing a lot of people. Simon was like, well, this is ridiculous. Negan, you got to kill more people and not be soft. And Negan's like, no, my methods have worked for a long time. And they were butting heads, and Simon actually was going to try to kill Negan, which is pretty crazy considering Simon is the right-hand man, the one who introduced Negan back in season 6. He's kind of the guy. Steve Ogg, Trevor, he's a well-known actor at this point. Yeah, it was kind of shocking. I mean, I'm going to miss Steve Ogg's character. He has some great moments. The whole battle on the hilltop, that was all him. I mean, he led that charge back when Negan was captured by Jadis. So that it's funny because Simon got better character development this season than fucking Carl did. I mean, you know, again, Carl had like 1 or 2 scenes with Siddiq where he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm suddenly wanting to save people now, and that makes me realize that I want to have a peaceful future." But we had established for a long time that Simon and Negan were very close and they have a strict leadership policy, but it would be totally reasonable to understand that Simon is a bit psychotic. And once he sees a lot of his people dying, he's like, maybe we should turn our attention in this war. And when leadership doesn't do that, you could see how Simon probably would react to that. So, man, what a season. And again, I'm jumping around with a whole bunch of different characters. I know I won't mention them all. But the main beats of this season was Carl's impact over it. Carl dying and Carl's last wishes, which ensure that Negan survives and is imprisoned and will make an appearance in later seasons. Now, like, as a comic book reader, like, I knew that. I knew Negan would survive the season and that he would be vital to events that happen later. But I mean, I don't know, maybe I never realized that problem, but again, you should have given Carl more screen time and development with his ideology over season 6, 7, and 8, when that was the saviors. Like, from the midway point of season 6 through season 7 and 8, that was all the saviors. That was the savior conflict. You should have been giving Carl a greater ideology during that time, so that his eventual death in season 8 is all the more tragic. Like, I mean, the only reason it's tragic is because we're losing a character we've had since season 1. And it was a kid, also. I mean, a kid dying is, you know, no one wants to see that. So, I just think they could have done it better. And I like Scott Gimple's thinking that you need Carl dying to make a big enough impact on Rick so that he makes the decision. Because, I mean, he's been telling Negan 100 times, I'm going to kill you, not today, not tomorrow, and what's the one thing that could make him go back on his word? Oh, well, his son having an impact. That's believable, but again, you have to pull it off. And I just think that there wasn't enough just enough pulling off with Carl's character with that. So, but again, that's not to say that I'm still excited for season 9. I mean, season 9 has a chance to really be a new beginning for the show because you got a new showrunner, Angela Kang, and you've got a time jump. In the comics, it's like, I think, 2 years, 3 years, and they could go more, because if you do that, Judith will be a bit more grown up, and the actor that plays Henry, I mean, he'll naturally grow up, but in the show, I guess he'll grow up. I don't know if they'll get a different actor, but yeah, there'll be some new things, and again, I don't know how they're going to handle the Whisperers, and that's the Whisperers, for you guys who don't know, they're the next villains. Very different, kind of like, you know, how Terminus was different. They were cannibals. Negan was almost like the evil empire of The Walking Dead, like super soldiers, or not really super soldiers, but just basically like a gang. They were a gang. They were like a high-level gang, and Rick's biggest threat. And the Governor was kind of low-key. The Governor was almost like a mirror of Rick's society, but on the same small scale. But with Negan, he's big scale. He's gang. He's, you know, kind of the anti-Rick in terms of trying to, you know, bring in people, but under oppression, under the thumb of his oppression. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I will still be interested in watching it in season 9, but I can kind of see where some people have had complaints, because, you know, every time I follow The Walking Dead on Facebook. If you guys saw that video I made a few months ago, where I scroll through comments of people saying, this show sucks, this show's this show that. Like, I don't know, again, that's Facebook. I mean, it's a very toxic atmosphere, but at the same time, I mean, people do have some grievances. I mean, the show can feel stagnant. I mean, it's been going on for 8 seasons into 9. It's hard for a show to retain viewership for that long, and it's got to have worthwhile content. So there's got to be some sort of goal for where The Walking Dead is going. And in season 5 and 4, you kind of had the fact that, Eugene might have a cure, and is that the ultimate end goal? But Eugene lied, so that's off the table. So it's just generically them surviving the walkers. And even right now where the Walking Dead comic book is at, like, I can't tell where they're going, because there's this super, super large community called the Commonwealth that they find with these, like, almost like Fallout power armored soldiers. And I don't know. I don't know where Robert Kirkman is taking the comics. That's the thing. Like, it's impossible to know where it's going to end. At least with Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is wrapping up with season 8. So they will basically say, hey, like, once the White Walkers are defeated and once Cersei Lannister is defeated, then the show is over, basically. Like the first scene of Game of Thrones, the very first scene of Game of Thrones features a White Walker, like, killing somebody. And so the end of the series will be the extermination of this mythical monster. What was the first scene of The Walking Dead? It's Rick filling up gas, and he shoots the zombie girl in the head. So, I don't know, eradicating the zombies would be the most logical thing, but I know Kirkman doesn't like those types of scenarios where they have to wipe out all the zombies, like World War Z, or find some sort of cure, or any zombie movie that has to end like that. Like, they gotta find the cure, they gotta find some way that masks the smell, or something like that. So, I don't know. It's very much up in the air. I don't know where Kirkman's going to go with the... Because, I mean, I've been reading all the new issues, and right now, like, Negan's MIA right now, and Rick has been out of some issues, and the Commonwealth is the major focus right now, and maybe there's going to be an indication by the end of the Commonwealth arc, because it does seem like the Commonwealth soldiers will meet Rick in Alexandria, so are they going to be, like, Negan 2.0, where they're going to be oppressive too? Like, I don't know. It's tough because you can only do the same kind of storyline so many times, and if you try to replicate that in television, people are going to catch on. So I don't know. The show's got to reinvent itself. I hope the show handles the Whisperers better than the comics did, because I think the comics did not do a good job with the Whisperers, because the Whisperers just kind of came in, attacked, but they lost. Like, they ultimately lost. Like, they did some damage and they were successful in kind of killing off a major character, but other than that, they lost. There was nothing. It was just, there was nothing that came from it. At least with Negan, Rick found a new philosophy in how he should handle future captives and the future of society. And Negan's a prisoner, and the sanctuary is part of the communities, and there's people from there that are part of them, and that's the same in the show and the comics. But without spoiling too much, the Whisperers, it hits a brick wall. They don't really go anywhere. They all end up getting killed off by the end of the war, and it's just, that's that, And there's some interesting character moments with some of them, but ultimately it's just, so hopefully the show does a better job. And I'm interested to see who will be cast as Alpha, who is the leader of the Whisperers, and Beta, who is the second in command. Big hulking giant, kind of like the Mountain from Game of Thrones. So, two interesting characters to cast. I don't know if there'll be any, like, new or something else that's kind of added in there. But we'll have to see. So, that's it from me. This is my Season 8 review. If I were to give it overall, it was an enjoyable season. Like, there were episodes, like, I think most of the season I enjoyed. Like, I'd give it a solid 9. I mean, I could say that Season 7 had way more stagnation than Season 8. In Season 8, there were one or two spots, but I think it moved. And the only thing that you really have to wrestle with is the believability of Carl's dream. Like, did they really give him enough character so that you can say, yeah, Carl believed in that? It's like, well, for me, I'm like, did Carl believe in that? Like, I'm kind of scratching my head when I say that. So that is my perspective. I give it a 9 because there was great action. It did justice to All Out War. I mean, there were some points, again, no F words. I thought they were going to be allowed to say the F word twice. In Fear the Walking Dead, they were. I don't know why they didn't take advantage of it in The Walking Dead. There were plenty of chances for Negan to say it at least once or twice, at least in the finale or the premiere, something. But freaking cable television just ruining everything. And so I don't know, man. And that's another thing about cable television. The ratings. I mean, the ratings just seem to fluctuate. So hopefully, The Walking Dead can find its groove. I mean, there's no cliffhanger to really come back for. Every other season, there's been like some looming threat. At the end of season 5, it was the wolves. End of season 6, who did Negan kill? End of season 7, all right, everyone's grouped together and they're ready to fight the saviors. End of season 8, the war just ends. The only thing that's really like a cliffhanger is what Maggie, Daryl, and Jesus are gonna do now that they're pissed off about Negan being kept alive, and then seeing the future of the society, and maybe Dwight finding Sherry, but that's about it. So, I mean, you're not leaving your audience with a cliffhanger, you're only leaving them with some conflict, and I think they had to do that, because otherwise it would have felt like a series finale. You could have literally just wrapped up the whole show on that note. So that's it from me for Season 8. I'll probably be making another Walking Dead vlog maybe later this week or next week, just talking about the future of the reaction videos and kind of things that I've been thinking about with them in the future. So yeah, just things I've been considering over the weeks that I've been doing this type of content, and I want your feedback because you all watch the videos, comment, and like. Walking Dead is obviously the most popular content on my channel. I just uploaded a Far Cry 5 video the other day, and obviously not as many people watch them, and that was my channel started out being a gaming hub, so Walking Dead seems to be it for now as far as I can see. So I guess I'll just focus on that, but I'll run out of things to talk to because we don't have The Walking Dead returning until the fall in October, so it's going to be a long wait. And unless I'm talking about Fear the Walking Dead, which I'm considering after this video watching the second episode, because if anything, like, I get to see what happens to Morgan. I get to see what happens to Morgan, and if he survives, and he's a character from The Walking Dead, and this is the continuation of his story. It's not a flashback where this is him, a younger Morgan, and we already know what happens, but no, this is Morgan after the events of All Out War, and if he ever, maybe at the end of Fear the Walking Dead, he goes back to Rick or something, or he just stays out there, maybe he dies. I mean, that'd be crazy, so there's a lot to look for. So, yeah, with all of that said, thank you guys for watching all my vlogs this season and watching all my reaction videos. It's been good. Again, viewership has fluctuated, but I expected that because of the show and the season. I've been very busy in my personal life, so the amount of time I attend to the reactions has been less. I'm sure people notice that with sometimes the camera quality, some of the audio issues. Those are sometimes things I can't control, but to the best of my ability, I try. So, yeah, with that said, I'll see you guys later. So peace out, thank you, and yeah, just comment what you thought about Season 8, and where would you rank it amongst other seasons. So, that's about it for me, guys. Peace.